Are you able to see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So at the Good Food Institute, as you know, we work to accelerate the alternative protein ecosystem, and we classify alternative proteins into three categories. First category is plant-based proteins, so proteins derived from plant sources. Secondly is the fermentation category, and this could be split up into two ways too, right? Where you could ferment microbes for their biomass or a fraction of their biomass. Or secondly, you could use microbial cells as production hosts for any specific proteins. And then thirdly, we have the animal cell culture, which deals more on the cultivated meat side. But the interesting thing about fermentation is that it's extremely functional platform that can be used as a
Oh no, I guess we'll never find out what fermentation can be used as. Just to complete my colleague's thought there, this is Varun Deshpande. Just to complete my colleague's thought there before we hand it over to Pete. And Pete, maybe this is an indication for you of what the kind of internet issues that we might be dealing with right now. But fermentation is an extremely versatile platform that can be utilized to create ingredients that feed into plant-based proteins as well as animal cell culture. And actually, given that it has a very rapid path to scale at low cost, fermentation is really, really promising in terms of its ability to drive the industry forward. And we're very excited to have Pete today to explain some of these things to us and what his company, MycoTechnology, is doing to advance fermentation as a platform in both plant-based as well as hopefully in the future cultivated meat, egg, and dairy products. I also want to quickly let everyone know that you may have seen in the invite for this that MycoTechnology has raised about $80 million in total across rounds leading up to Series C. But here's an exciting piece of news that Pete let us know before the call, which is they've actually already raised a Series D round of, Pete, correct me if I'm wrong, $39 million additional.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's not yet released to the press. So you're one of the first people to hear it on this call, which is very exciting. Thank you so much, Pete. I'll hand it over to you now.
Okay, thank you very much, Varun and Shadul and Siddharth. I appreciate it. I'm a big fan of what the GFI is doing in plant-based food. Certainly plays very strategically into what we're doing here. So good evening, everyone. My name is Pete Lubar, and I'm a co-founder of MycoTechnology. Me and my three partners started this organization 7 years ago. To date, we've raised about $120 million US, and have been able to become, in a very short period, one of the more interesting companies in the food space. So today I'm going to take you through a little bit about what's going on in the industry and trends, and share some information about our company specifically, and tell you how to reach us or reach our products. I'd like to thank my friends and partners from Escoffier. They are based in Mumbai, and terrific partners, Prakash Banashali and Rahesh Shah. They are people that I've been able to start working with over the last year, and have really embraced our products and are working their best to bring those into your market. So we'll talk more about them a little bit later on. It is 5:05 in the morning here. I've been up for an hour. I am still in my pajamas per se. I am drinking coffee. I have actually thrown some cordyceps sinensis into my coffee so I can have better immunity to viral kinds of things. We're still in a bit of a mess here in the US, of course, one of the hardest hit regions in the world. And so I have been in lockdown for 10 weeks. Hopefully you are seeing my deck.
Yep, we can.
You see it?
Yes, you can just go into the full screen mode so that.
Yeah, I'm trying. There we go. Okay. So what MycoTechnology about is really a fermentation platform, and our fermentation is different than any fermentation that we know of in the world, at least, in that we don't use bacteria. We're not using yeast as our fermentation platform. We're using gourmet mushrooms, and we have about 60 different strain of gourmet mushroom that we use Some of those would be very familiar to you, perhaps shiitake, maitake, portobello, all of these. But there's some that you would never have heard of, and we have discovered through our research and development that goes on in our facility. So it's a very interesting platform. I would say it's very akin to a beer factory. So if you think about making beer, you take raw materials, you add yeast and water to it, it grows for a period of time, ferments for about 2 weeks, and then you have an alcohol-based system. So that's sort of what we're doing. And today, what I want to talk about is our company, what's going on in the industry. We'll spend some time on ClearTaste, which is our protein product. We may, if we have time, go into ClearTaste. It's another offering that we have, one of our commercial offerings, and then we'll open it up to any questions that you might have. So MycoTechnology, once again, is a Colorado-based company. We started it in 2013. We really started to develop tempeh in a solid state manner. So our original concept was to grow really different kinds of gourmet mushroom on rice and sell that as a tempeh. As we started working and developing our platform, we decided and learned that we could get into taking the bitterness out of products like coffee and cacao. And so we started working with that. And sort of a discovery along the way was that one of the mushroom that we were working with did a really fantastic job of creating the metabolites, the molecules that we needed to be able to do bitter blocking. And so our Series A was really about our first product called ClearTaste, which is an organic bitter blocker. Our Series B and subsequent rounds have been around protein. And so we've really become a company that has sort of two facets to us. One is sort of a flavoring facet, and the other is really the research around biomass and what we can do with that from a protein standpoint and or other solutions. So a very novel platform. We've got 27 issued patents now. We have, I think, 48 additional patents filed around the world. It's a very exciting time at MycoTechnology. We've grown from the 4 of us initially to now about 100 employees, and have really become worldwide known as experts in fermentation. Forbes magazine rated us one of the 50 most interesting companies in the food space about 4 months ago. So a lot's happened for us in a very short period of time. So excited to share that with you guys today. We have a state-of-the-art beer factory, the best way to describe it, our Fermentation Factory. It is 8,000 square meters. It houses our corporate headquarters. It houses our laboratory space, and of course our manufacturing space as well. When you look on the right in this picture, you can see in this far right corner some very small fermenters. Those are, I think, about 10 liter. The process itself ultimately takes us into the fermenters that you see on the left, which are about 20, they're about 10 meter high, and they hold about 90,000 liters. So we have 6 seed trains where we start from basically a flask and take our process up until it finishes in this 90,000 liter fermenter. And then we take it through some back-end processing. We have a spray dryer on our facility. We have pasteurization equipment, of course. We have wet milling capabilities. We have all sorts of capabilities that we've added to our downstream process. And many of our products will have different downstream process, but very similar upstream process. So we may monitor the different mushroom. We may monitor pH. We may monitor temperature. And then we'll take it through a back-end process where we'll pasteurize our products for safety, of course, and then whether we separate the biomass out or leave the biomass in the concoction, that depends on what we're trying to do. So a little bit about our facility. It's a beautiful facility. We've been in there about a year. We spent $40 million developing that facility, and it gives us the ability to do things in a scale and a size that most companies in the world can't do. Our company has really been around to solving big issues. And we started it and we said, how do we solve really big things that haven't been solved in a long time? And when we thought about things like sugar consumption is one of those issues that's a worldwide problem now. The food industry has been fabulous at killing us, at putting sugar into everything, and everything's become a sugar delivery system. And so when we first started as a company, we were really interested in how we reduce the amount of sugar in foods. And our ClearTaste product, which we developed, was really about reducing the need for sugar because it blocked bitterness in the foods that we were making. And so we really started there. And sodium is another one of those things and a big issue around the world. And how do we, in fact, sodium is, I think, the biggest killer now in the world. But how do we reduce salt diets? And the tools that were out there weren't sufficient. And so our bitter blocker really helped with these two issues in particular. And that's really how we got started and why we got going. More recently, in the last, I'd say now 4 years, we've really talked about the protein shortage in the world. We're very concerned about the fact that we know that the population of the earth is growing. We're concerned about the number of animals that are being killed and whether we would have protein and protein security. And so we set about 4 years ago, really looking for a way to develop protein to the world. And certainly we were looking for vegan ways to do that. So I talked about our platform a little bit. We are a mushroom fermentation platform. We take raw materials. It could be vegetables. It could be sugars, depending on what we're trying to do. We take it through a process where we start in a flask. We take it into a 10-liter bioreactor. It then goes to like a 1,000-liter bioreactor. It then goes to like a 10,000-liter bioreactor and ends up in a 90,000-liter bioreactor. So the seed train is there. And then we back end process it. And most of our products go into a dry broth. We do have a couple of products that we're working on right now where it might be beneficial to have the wet material, the mycelium, a wet material. If you think about a cosmetic type product, maybe we could do something in that marketplace. A number of cosmetic companies use the extracts from mushroom to make different things. We also have the ability to mitigate different types of, or remediate maybe is a better way to say that, different types of waste streams. So we constantly are talking to companies around the world who created something and need have that as a waste stream. They're either throwing it away or hauling it away. And can we do something with mushroom that allows us to remediate that so it has some value? So we look at those kind of opportunities to do things with companies as well. And I've had some success with that, looking for very inexpensive products and finding a way to make them have a higher value. Everything we do in our company today is done with the mycelia of mushroom. So I think most of you would know mycelia is the root structure. That's the white material that you see spidering, the filamentous material that you see spidering through the forest as you walk through the forest. Obviously, there are stems and caps as well. We are not working with stems and caps in our facility. In our facility, we only work with the mycelium, and that's where the fermentation takes place. So I'm going to talk a little bit now about the opportunity because the market has dramatically changed over the last few years. Obviously in India, you guys eat more vegetable than most countries, but particularly you see it now, and I cover Asia for our organization. I'm starting to see it in all the Asian nations. The middle and upper class people are looking for vegetable-based options, vegan type options or vegetarian options. We're certainly seeing that trend in the United States in a big way. And so I want to talk about that. So the world changed last May. And what changed is a company called Beyond Meat, who we share actually common investors. And so we know the guys at Beyond Meat pretty well. They had their IPO and they raised a lot of money. They priced the stock at $26 a share. before it was done in about August, it was up to, I think, about $200 a share. So a huge increase for the company, really nice for the investors. So there was a lot of people celebrating around us that we knew, and that was exciting. But what happened is it changed how the big meat companies looked at vegetable and meat analog in particular. And so what we saw was suddenly everyone was interested in this, because we were now looking at a market that was very similar to the alternate milks, which is the market went from zero very quickly to about 10 billion. And they were worried that Beyond Meat was now signaling a trend that would take us to about $40 billion worldwide. The meat industry is massive, but when you think about suddenly a $40 billion chunk being taken out, primarily against people who were flexitarians, people who ate meat, you know, the target market for Beyond Meat is not vegetarians, it's not vegan eaters, it's people who ate meat. And so the strategy was all about taking money away from the meat companies, and the meat companies universally freaked out. And by, I'd say, June or July, companies like ours were talking to most of the major meat companies in the world as they were looking for plant-based offerings. So a huge trend that we're seeing, and I can tell you that the coronavirus in many ways is exaggerating the change. We're seeing what's happening in the meat plant packing areas. We've got a big one here from JBS here in Colorado. They had 700 employees infected with COVID-19. It's a big problem. And so what it's doing for people is making them think that meat isn't as healthy as they think it is, and they don't like the way it's being processed. And as a result, they're looking for plant-based options. So this Beyond Meat IPO really changed the industry. And we're now seeing that. I said every meat company is announcing or in this game. So you saw Beyond Meat, Tyson's introduced a burger. Theirs is a little interesting because it's a combo burger. It has both meat and protein, plant-based protein in it. So it's very interesting. I'm not sure where the consumer market is for that yet, but that's something that they're working through. Nestle's got a burger out now. JBS just announced the Ozo burger, which I'm proud to say is our product. And so a lot of this is going on around the world. And all the major grocery chains are also now looking at alt burgers in some fashion or form, and alt meat. The next thing is chicken. So we're seeing chicken, we're seeing fish become part of this market now, alt fish patties, alt salmon patties, something like that. A lot of activity is going on in this particular part of the market. What Beyond did, and what Impossible is doing as well, is they moved from the frozen section, frozen patties, where Morningstar from Kellogg was really the dominant player, and they moved it out to the fresh meat section. And by doing that, they were able to change their margins completely. So when Beyond Meat first introduced themselves to the marketplace, they were in the frozen section. They didn't grow at all. They didn't get any traction. They moved to the fresh meat section, and suddenly now they were able to get higher premiums for their product, and sales went through the roof. And now they're doing $120 million a quarter, quite a nice little business. Their stock is worth 10 billion or whatever it is. So it's worked as a strategy. Obviously, Impossible's doing the same thing. People are launching into the big burger chains as well. So now you can, at least here in the US, you can go into any Burger King and get an Impossible burger. They've gone into food service. A lot of this is really good news for us. I was at the grocery store the other day, happened to see an aisle now, a section in the meat section of all fresh meat, plant-based meat products, and it's really grown. It used to be a couple of packages, one little section. It's probably now a 3 meter wide, 3 meter tall section now with lots of choices. So the choices are becoming more for the consumer, and that's really an interesting thing. So once again, we're looking at a prize of about 40 billion. And this is, I think, US market, 270 billion, but a very big part of that. And if you can see, plant-based is growing, and Beyond Meat's only a little small piece of that. So there's a big market opportunity for those of you who want to take advantage of that. So we're excited to be there, and we think by the next 3 to 5 years, it'll be close to a $40 billion market. So, you know, there's a lot of things going on, a lot of market dynamics and reasons to prefer plant-based products. And this was a survey from Nielsen in 2018. And, you know, we're really talking about people wanting to improve their health and nutrition. People use plant-based foods as a way to use weight management. They want to eat cleaner. They are worried about health concerns. So that might be, you know, the COVID kind of thing, although this was taken long before COVID. And then there's a big concern now, and my son-in-law is now completely vegan, or he's actually a vegetarian, but he gave up animals food because he didn't like the way that animals were treated. He saw videos out there, and he's 27 years old or 28 years old. He's a millennial, and he saw videos out there on calves being thrown into trucks on their way to being slaughtered, and it just didn't sit well with him. And we're seeing that as a big trend as well, that people just don't like the way we take care of animals, and so they're looking for other ways to eat. So with that said, that's a little bit about what's going on in the industry and what sparked the change. I'm going to spend just a few minutes on what we're doing and our protein product, because I think it's really interesting and really a really novel kind of thing that we're doing. So the term mycoprotein is actually a term that was trademarked by Corn. Corn's a company originally based out of the UK. I think they're owned by, I'm not sure, a Filipino or Vietnamese company now, but Corn created the term mycoprotein. And what Corn was doing was taking a mold-like product, using it in a fermentation to create structure for a solid piece of meat. And they were using egg to bind it together. So it wasn't a vegan product. The mold structure that they were using was not particularly safe, but they got a good following, and it grew, and they turned it into a $750 million exit. So it was a pretty good deal for them. But they own that word mycoprotein. When people come to us and talk to us about our protein, they often refer to it as mycoprotein as well. But in fact, that's not what we're doing right now. What we're doing right now is taking other plant-based proteins. In our case, we're taking pea and rice protein, and we're fermenting it with shiitake mushroom. And the shiitake mushroom does what mushrooms do in the forest, which is they are the cleanup crew. You cannot have a healthy forest without having mycelia and without having mushroom. They take all the toxins out of the environment and they replace it with really good stuff, so the organisms that are symbiotic with it have a way to grow. And so what we're doing with the pea and rice both have negative taste. And if you've ever had something made with mostly pea, or you've had anything made with rice protein, they definitely have negative tastes. People don't prefer them. And of course, as an industry, the way that we cover up pea and rice negative taste is with flavor systems, with sugar, with salt. All those things are, no, flavor systems aren't necessarily bad for you. They are expensive, but certainly sugar and salt are not the preferred way that we want to go about trying to make the world healthier. And so what we're doing is we're taking pea and rice, fermenting it with the mycelia root. We let it grow over a period of about 48 hours, so a very short fermentation process. We're able to reuse water, recapture water, and so we've created a very sustainable way to create a protein. Our protein product is about 80% protein by weight, which is really good. but most importantly, the combination of pea and rice give us a fully complete protein. It gives us all the essential and all the non-essential amino acids in the amounts, grams per milligram, that is required or specified by the Food Ag Organization. So we've created this really cool full spectrum protein that actually tastes great. So we talk about plant-based without the plant taste. The fermentation process deodorizes and deflavors the raw material. So instead of having a beanie note that most pea-based products have, this tastes slightly cereal-based, I would say. Maybe some people say they can taste a slight umami. And when you think about a meat alternative, umami is a really good flavor to have. So we're doing that, and it's a very highly functional protein. It absorbs water and fat really well. So if I'm creating a patty of some type, it makes a really juicy patty. And of course, we've extruded it, so we know it extrudes well, all that kind of stuff. So this is what we're doing. We're drying it into a powder, and we ship the powder around the world. Fermentation, as we started with today, really adds a lot of value to us. So from our standpoint, it gives us a story. If you think about today, if you were going to go out and make a meatball and you made it with pea protein, which a lot of people are doing today, you would find that that's a great way to do it, and you can create it very inexpensively and sell it to the masses. But the answer is it doesn't always taste that great. And so, and by the way, there's already those products out there. They've happened. So if you're now coming in thinking you're going to make the next best pea protein product, plant-based meat analog, you're going to have to compete on price because you're just another pea product. There's already those products out there. So you have no marketing story. So one of the things that we bring to our customers is the ability to talk about fermentation. And people are familiar with fermentation. It's viewed very positively. There's lots of fermented foods, including beer out there in the marketplace. So lots of fermentation. Fermentation is really perceived really well, and that gives you a marketing story. So fermentation is really a cool thing. It deflavors and deodorizes the raw material. And this is a great thing, once again, as a formulator. If you're someone who's in R&D and you're working with new products and you want to use the least amount of ingredients and make better for you type food, then this product really works well for that. There's no allergens in it. So if you're going to go make soy, you know that a soy product, you know that there's allergens in soy. And so, you know, it's not maybe the best thing for everyone. There's no allergens in our product. We don't use any, considered mushrooms themselves are considered non-allergen, but any problems that people have had have been around the spores. There's no spores anywhere in our factory. So, so we got that. You know, it's a complete protein. I've talked about that. We have found that our product, and we just did some studies recently by the University, I believe, of Illinois, University of Illinois, did some studies with our protein absorption and digestibility. One, we have a perfect digestibility score of 1.0. So if you're familiar with DIAS score or PDCAS, those are digestibility scores. Our we score as a 1. That's a good number. Pea protein is something like 0.84, so much less bioavailable. But we found that the fermentation process also breaks down slightly the amino acids and make them more absorbable. So that's another benefit that we provide, and a good thing and a part of the story, and easier digestion as a result of that as well. So, you know, I do eat Beyond Meat burgers because of a product with my stuff in it isn't on the market yet. But I do see, I do feel when I eat it that I feel a little bloated from the pea. When we eat our product, we don't feel that same level of bloatation. So another benefit that we get from that. So, you know, food forms that you can use our product in, there are a ton of them. I've probably got 60 recipes for different products in my facility alone. We've certainly made a delicious burger. I mentioned earlier that JBS, the world's largest meat company, is now putting us in their Ozo burger. We're in the Omni pork burger out of China, out of Hong Kong. So we're in a number of products, burger meat analog. We're seeing a lot of interest in the alt milks, and so we're working with several companies like that. But we've made alt milk, we've made ice cream, we've made yogurt, we have made bread. So if you think about bread with protein, we're now changing that glycemic index on bread. Same thing with pancakes and waffle type products. And so there are just a ton of different, if you can think about a food, you probably can add protein to it. And certainly people are looking for protein over carbohydrates at this point in their diets. This is just, you know, the little bit of the specs of the product itself, but it's got higher than expected amino acids and versus what the FAO requires. And this, I have a better chart of that, so we'll talk about that. And I'll talk about the certifications. It's about greater than 77% protein on a dry weight basis, and pretty good properties for it as well. The most important ones, I think, are the water holding and oil holding. So if you're going to make a meat-based analog, you want it to be juicier, and the way you can do that is by having it hold more water. And if you're selling a meat-based product, you pay by the ounce or pound or kilogram or gram or however you want to specify that. So obviously the more water holding, the better that is as well. We did some sensory analysis with some outside firms, you know, pure taste versus the raw material inputs, because I get people all the time who say, well, why don't I just put pea and rice together? I'll have a complete protein and we'll be great. And I go, okay, go do that and tell me how it tastes. So pure taste is, stays in suspension better, it's more soluble, it's got a better smell to it, it's got a better taste to it, and the taste is really king. We're a little bit of a premium product. We're more expensive, we know that. We take it through an extra process than pea and rice or other inputs, and as a result, it's a little more expensive to produce. We're not targeted for the low-end mass market. That's not our market. We're looking for people who want better for you foods. We're looking for people who want better flavor and taste. And that's where we, you know, that's where we're focused on. So when you taste our product or smell our product, if you were to taste our burger or smell our burger versus Beyond Meat, for example, which of course we've done many, many times, it's way better. And that's what you want to make for your customers. You know, this is a solubility thing. This is solubility at different pH levels. At pH 7, which is where we try and do things for beverages, it has pretty good solubility. We have now been wet milling for the last couple of weeks. We installed a wet miller. We've been able to reduce the particle size even smaller. And as a result, we're making alt milks that are pretty darn good. So that's a fairly new development for us, but working in that market. From a amino acid profile, I mentioned that we have all 20 amino acids in the right levels to satisfy the FAO. We have companies that are specifically using our product to get the leucine out of it because it has very high leucine, and they're using it as a flavor system. So it's a very interesting application for it, and they're using us in a soup. And so, you know, different kind of application. Didn't see that coming when we invented this, but it's all good. And then from a regulatory status, we are FDA GRAS, we are non-GMO, we are kosher, we are halal, we are in Canada as non-novel. We're working on our non-novelty, however you say that, in Europe. And hopefully we'll be able to get that through here in the next couple of months. I am not yet certain the direct path in India. I'm still working through that, and my partners at Escoffier are helping that with me. We do make a texturized version. So in a meat analog, you want to have texturized protein. we make two types of texturized protein. We make a large chunk and a small chunk. They're about, I don't know, the large is probably 9 centimeters, the small is probably 6, so something in that area. So fairly small pieces. If you're going to make a burger, you're going to want some of both because that's how you get the ideal texture. But you know, really good product. This product's a little bit different in that we're actually taking ClearTaste and we're blending it with a little bit of pea fiber. So that gives it a little bit of that mouthfeel that you want when you make a meat analog. We do blend in a little bit of pea protein in there. That gives us some binding capability that we want, but we make a really nice texturized product. You know, we're compared all the time against soy and pea. We get it. And, you know, where we compete best is, one, it tastes better. It's allergen friendly. It's a complete protein, clean label. It's got good functionality and it's very unique. And so those products are available for the market as well. And sort of my last slide on protein, and then I'll kind of shift gears a little bit, is sort of where we're going. So today, you can buy our product in a powder form or as a texturized product, and you could use that as a meat extender. So we have customers that are adding this in to meat to extend the meat, and particularly as meat has gotten more expensive as we've gone through the coronavirus, you know, that might be an option. We also make the meat analog that I talked about, and we have the ability to customize ClearTaste. So because we have a library of about 60 different mushroom types, and because there are different raw materials out there, we have the ability in certain cases to make specialized protein. So if, for example, a company might come to us and ask us to develop, you know, using, I don't know, different raw material and a different mushroom type. And if the opportunity is right, we will certainly be able to do that. So, you know, it's not for the little guy, obviously. It's got to be a big opportunity for us, but that's the kind of thing that we can do. And then where we're going is the research that we're doing around true mycoprotein. And, you know, where we're going around is now finding ways to take very inexpensive inputs like simple sugars and convert that into mushroom protein. Mushroom does make protein. It's not today very good protein. It's not extremely, it doesn't have a lot of protein in it, so you'd have to make isolates and things like that. Where we're going is trying to develop a mushroom that will grow 80% protein in very high quality. And we're doing some work with CRISPR and things like that that are allowing us to do that. And we're having some success with that. And so, you know, there's going to be regulatory challenges as we go through that. But my suspicion is in the next 3 to 4 years, we will have a product in the market that is completely protein-based, made from mushroom. So, and we see that as certainly maybe something that gets us into fleshy meat type applications. But, you know, how we position this to customers, you start the journey with us, and as you move along, you're going to get some really interesting technology that nobody else in the world can do because we filed the patents on it and prosecute those. The next couple slides are just sort of ClearTaste applications. So this is a burger, and more this is visual, but to get you hungry because it's almost dinner time for you guys. But if you look, you see a burger that's actually pretty low in calories. Once again, we're trying to do a better burger. We make a gluten version of this and a non-gluten version of this. We have recipes available for you if you want those. But this is sort of the interesting part of the chart. Here is our product, which we call the True Burger internally. It's just a burger that we made as a prototype when we were first starting to talk to the different meat companies. It's a base to start from. They've all taken this product and moved on to the next step. But this one is got 28 grams of protein. So I'm comparing against Beyond, Nestle's burgers, the Awesome Burger. We've got the Impossible Burger. We've got Before the Butcher Burger, and then we have a McDonald's Quarter Pounder. And if you look at the protein, we're among the highest, if not the highest, in protein content. Our fat level is among the less. So that's good, right? We have less sodium in most cases than others, and our calories are less. And if you look at the ingredients that we use, we have far fewer ingredients. So from a clean label standpoint, this is a much better product to work with. Now, here's Beyond's. They've got 20-some different things in here. It's kind of crazy, all the stuff they have in here. And they have to, because they use pea as their primary vegetable protein source, right? So this is kind of an interesting comparison. We could do the same thing on milk. Once again, we have a very nice milk we've made. It makes a really nice flavored milk. If you like chocolate milk or turmeric milk. Oh, for some reason, it feels like it needs to install right now. Okay. But here's the comparison again. Lower calorie than most of the milks out there. We're comparing, oops, what did I just do? We're comparing whole milk, 2% milk, almond breeze, so an almond milk, an Oatly milk, an oat milk, Califia Farms milk, etc. So Ripple is a pea-based product. So there's a lot of, Silk is soy-based, a Dannon company. So, 5 grams of fat, sodium is less, protein is higher, and very few ingredients. So once again, we're making something that is better for you. And I think that's good. And if you look at sort of the plant protein comparison, you look at PureTaste versus soy, pea, rice protein, we have really none of the baggage that any of the other proteins have. And then I started talking about other applications. Gosh, we've made protein donuts, we've made protein pasta, muffins, cookies. So there's a lot of area in baked goods to change what's going on in the marketplace. There's a lot of area in obviously meat analog, RTDs, RTMs, etc. So that kind of takes me through it, and we're right at the 45-minute mark. I was going to spend a few minutes on ClearTaste. I will leave it with you that ClearTaste is an organic bitter blocker used in parts per million. It's made from actually the cordyceps mushroom, and the cordyceps mushroom has bitter blocking that blocks something like 18 of your 25 bitter receptors. So it doesn't fully block all 18 of those, but it does a really good job of mitigating those off flavors. So even in pea protein, if you're making a product with pea protein, you can add a little bit of PureTaste in parts per, or ClearTaste, sorry, in parts per million, and it will mitigate the pea protein taste. And so we use it a lot in things like stevia, non-nutritive sweeteners, in a beverage, in a non-nutritive. If you have something like stevia, you're probably using it at 1 part per million. So extremely affordable to be able to do that. A really interesting product. If you have a bitter challenge with amino acids or caffeine or any of those kind of products, I highly recommend that you get some ClearTaste. So I'm going to blast through these slides so I can get to questions, different applications that we use it in. Alcohol is a really fun one. If you want to have a good party trick, you put it in a little bit of wine or into a vodka or a bourbon, and you can taste the difference immediately. And I use it in parts per million, which is really hard to do at a bar with a tip of a knife. So anyhow, ClearTaste is a female product. It is accepted around the world, particularly in your country. So we'll skip that. Squeaky Air is a company out of Navi Mumbai. They've also got offices in Delhi and Bangalore. They specialize in plant-based proteins in all sorts of different areas. They're really a specialty product ingredient provider. I found them at the Paris Food Ingredients Show back in December. I've been working with Rajesh Shah and Prakash now for 6 months or so. They have been fantastic partners. If you want to get samples of our products or more information or pricing or any of that, you can reach out to Prakash. I've got his email here below. I assume we can make this presentation available if anyone wants it as well. Yeah, they're really great guys to work with, have been very responsive and helped arrange this meeting with GFI today. So I appreciate that. And I'll leave that up one more second so you can get their information. And then I'm going to open it up for questions that you might have.
Great. Thank you, Pete, for the wonderful presentation. The details of Escofia would be available after in the follow-up email. And for the questions, I think we can get started. We have a bunch of questions submitted by the attendees. All the attendees are requested to submit any specific and pointed questions specifically to the topic that was covered today through the Q&A section. We'll be taking all the questions from now till 6 p.m. Thank you. So Siddharth, would you like to get started?
Sure, Shardul. Thanks, Pete, for the wonderful presentation. So I think one of the first question is from Chloe, and her question is around taste. And she's curious, like, does the taste not change massively between markets? Like, what is a positive taste? What is a negative taste in different markets, and your experiences around the same?
Well, that's a good question. The taste profile is neutral, and that's what you want, because you want your flavor system to come out. You want your chicken to taste like chicken, and you want your fish to taste like fish. And so you're working with a neutral palate, and it doesn't seem to matter what market I go into. They like the base taste. I mean, you taste it, it's very neutral. So, you know, I've done a lot of work and sampled a lot in the Philippines, in Japan, in Korea, in Australia, in Vietnam. It is universally well liked. So I don't think there's a big taste difference from a flavor profile for the product. Now, of course, every region has different markets and different taste preferences. So some markets like food spicier, some like it less spicy, some like it tasting more like fish, whatever. It doesn't matter. A product really is adaptable to whatever you're trying to do.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Pete.
Great, thanks for that context. Another question is between different types of mushroom, right? You kind of mentioned a couple of things, that if there are bigger corporates who are looking to have strategic partnerships with different raw materials and different types of mushrooms, that could be explored with the in-house expertise that MycoTechnology already has. And a specific question was around mycelium and versus fusarium, like normal mushrooms versus specific varieties of mushrooms that you've been using. How does that affect the fermentation technology and what you have to offer? Like some general insights on that front.
So I'm not sure I know how to answer the question, but we're doing a lot of work right now on the mushrooms of immortality, the cordyceps, the reishi, chaga, lion's mane mushroom. We work only in mycelia, so but we're not growing our mycelia on rice like is what is going on in most of the world. It's grown on rice or oats, and they grind that up, and then they sell you a product which is mostly oats. We're working with this material in massive, tanks, and we're able to strain out everything that isn't biomass. And so we can take the biomass and make a really pure product. And when we've done the studies, the mycelia has the exact same nutrients as the caps do. And so, we think we can create products that are so pure from a biomass standpoint, and where we get around our biomass stuff is now we start talking about, boy, could we create a bacon, for example, or a cut of meat from the pressed biomass? And that's the stuff that we're working on right now that, isn't there today, but will be, available in 6 to 12 months. I hope that answered the question.
Yep, thank you for that context.
Thank you, Pete. So I think there are a few questions around how much does the quality of protein come from the mushrooms versus how much does the protein quality come because of the blend of pea and rice protein. So Pete, if you could just explain that a little more.
Yeah, because I mentioned earlier that the mushroom is actually doesn't create a lot of protein. So the mushroom is there for the fermentation process, number one. The mushroom is there for the vitamins that it provides, like beta glucan, like B12, like vitamin D. So there's some other things that the mushroom brings to the table. But I would say when you look at the final mixture of powder, and kind of everything's kind of a light colored powder. It's very small. It's maybe 2 to 3% total. So that's why today it's not truly a mycoprotein. We're using mushroom as the fermentation engine on other plant-based proteins, where we go over the next couple of years is into a true mycoprotein. But we're doing that, in a natural way, but not. We're doing that through technologies like CRISPR, which allow us to take out things that don't grow protein, add things that do grow protein, and create a new species of mushroom, essentially.
Yeah, so that I also wanted to add, there's a funny comment saying the Growing Fungi Institute. That's pretty funny. I also wanted to add that with mycoprotein, which is what Pete just referred to, that is a different category from what MycoTechnology currently does and something they're looking into in the future, as he mentioned. Mycoprotein, which is the whole biomass of yeast or mushroom, has been shown by Quorn, the company that Pete mentioned earlier, to also have nutritional equivalence to milk proteins. That is 1.0 on the PDCAAS scale. So they've done with the University of Exeter, with Imperial College, with multiple trials. They've done hyperamino acidemia trials. They've done hyperinsulinemia trials. They've done muscle biopsies for hypertrophy. They've done a lot of work on nutrition. And so this is an area that is incredibly promising in general. And MycoTechnology is a company with tech that's on the forefront of this area.
Yeah, and so corn, if you peel under the cover though, their protein source is really the egg. It's not the mushroom yet. So they've got the same challenge that we do with mushroom itself. The protein's very low right now. And so they would have to do what we're doing. And if they did that now, they'd be in trouble because we've put the patents in place.
Thank you, Pete, for the context.
Yep.
Okay. Another question were around allergens. Like, are there any allergenic considerations when you're using mushroom in the end product? Like, just any general insights on the product development when you're using some of these ingredients, and from perspective of allergenicity. You obviously mentioned some of these things in your presentation. If you just want to build up upon that.
Yeah, I'm not sure I totally heard the question right, but were you asking about allergens?
Yes, and
Yeah.
its considerations given your sources of product, including mushrooms, which might be considered by some as allergens.
Yeah, it is not listed as a common allergen, mushroom itself. And usually, as I mentioned earlier, if someone has an allergen, it is really around the spores, so the reproductive cycle. And so we don't do that in our facility. Everything we do is liquid culture, working with the root structure. We've been in business 7 years. Even people who've told me they have mushroom allergies who have tried our product have not had trouble. That doesn't mean, of course, that there isn't somebody in the world that would have a problem, but I'd say your risk is really low.
Got it. Another question was around, instead of using pea protein, what if have you tried like things like wheat protein, etc., as base sources? Any other interesting sources that, are coming close to, being commercialized or acted upon?
Yes. So we try a lot of stuff. When we started this product, though, we wanted to have a product that was close to 80% protein by dry weight, and so that was number one. And number two, we wanted to have a complete protein. And so we've tried all sorts of stuff. We've tried chickpea. We've tried, you know, I can think of probably 50 different experiments we've done with different types of protein, but we certainly wanted to get to a point where we had a complete protein and a good taste. So we wanted both, and this gave us our best option.
Got it. So obviously, like in the different countries that you operate, different raw materials will be looked at as potential sources of, bases. Like in India, legumes, pulses, and lentils are available in a big number. Is that something you've considered as well when you're considering some of these sources? Any thoughts specifically on proteins derived from legumes and lentils, that go with your mushroom technology for fermentation?
We can use anything. It's just got to be the right opportunity, because if it's not something we can generally commercialize, then you've got to take it all, right? All that we can make. So we're not going to make a unique protein for a customer that's going to buy a pallet full. They've got to be, it's got to be a business. We just make business decisions on that kind of stuff. It's got to be big enough opportunity, and if it's there, we'll have a chat.
Yeah, I just want to make something clear to the audience. So MycoTechnology has specific flagship products, and they want to work with partners to launch products into the end market. So we'll send around, as I said earlier, the presentation, the contact details of Escoffier, their partners in India, and please feel free to contact us or Escoffier directly to discuss possibly partnering with them to create products using MycoTechnology lines.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're very open-minded. We get a lot of interesting requests coming to us, but the companies that come to us are also some of the biggest companies in the food industry, and they don't have small problems. I can tell you our investors include Tyson and Kellogg and Bunge and Ajinomoto, and they have invested in us, and they partner with us on opportunities. And our investor group has taken us into every major food company in the world. And so, these companies don't do anything small. So when we look for market opportunities, we're looking for things that solve big global problems. And that's, so we're looking to do things that will solve a big global problem.
Yeah, thank you, Pete. I think the next question is around plant-based dairy. And the specific question is, in what ways do you see your product being applied in plant-based dairy products, and what specific advantages could it offer?
So I kind of covered that during the presentation, so maybe this question was asked before, but we're seeing our product works really well in the alt milks and the alt yogurts and the alt ice creams. And so we're getting a lot of interest in that particular market. I have lots of recipes around that area we can share that you can use as a base. We have a base milk, we've got a base turmeric milk, we got a base chocolate milk, we have base yogurts, we have base ice cream recipes. We've done a lot of work in that area, and we'll continue to do so. We have a microthermics in our facility, so we can homogenize and pasteurize and do all those things in our facility. So, and if the right opportunity, you feel like you want to come to the U.S. and work with us on a product like that, we're more than happy to do that. You should be able to find someone in your own market that can do that with you too.
Perfect. Thank you, Pete. I think we have a lot of potential entrepreneurs, and I think they are very inspired by your journey, Pete, and about MycoTechnology. So if you could share, few challenges that you faced in the whole scale-up process and how you address those, just a high-level overview. That would be, I think, great for our community in general.
I'm sorry, high-level overview of what?
Like the challenges, what are typically faced in a fermentation process, and how you address them, because we have a lot of entrepreneurs who are very inspired by your talk today, and it would be a good motivation for community building.
Yeah, well, the biggest challenge that we've had, which is not a terrible challenge anymore, but really the mushroom is a complex organism, but it does get out-competed. And so you have to have an extremely sterile environment for the mushroom to grow without getting out-competed by mold, bacteria, other kinds of things. So, in the early days, I'd say we lost half of the things we were making that came out, the plate counts weren't good or whatever. So you have to learn to really, and you have to have the right equipment to make sure that everything is sterile and clean. So that was the early challenge. Mushrooms are complex. They require oxygen. They don't always, we didn't always know in the early days what we were looking for. So, we'd make a batch and we'd run it, and we did it based on time only, or we do it based on smell, or we do it, we had no way to measure it. We were sort of the pioneers in this industry. And so, as we got more sophisticated, we started understanding how to measure the right pH and what pH does over time, and what the temperatures needed to be, and how much oxygen and impeller speeds, and all of that went into the early days of the technology. So I'd say those are the two biggest challenges. And then for the entrepreneurs out there, obviously the next thing is you got to have money. And, we raised our journey. We raised about $300,000 from friends and family on the idea that we were going to make coffee taste better. As we started working with the big coffee producers, we realized that they were working in millions of pounds a day, and we were doing things in 10 pounds a day. So there was no way we were going to scale effectively, and so we had to find other ways to do that. And the way we did that was through the finding of our bitter blocker. And so, we've spent a lot of money over the last 7 years. We just raised some more, so that's good. We hope to go public maybe next year or the year after. So, we're going through the journey, but I can tell you as an entrepreneur, if you're a CEO of a company, every day you better be thinking about raising money and preserving money.
Yeah, thank you, Pete.
That's a lot of context. Yeah. Our question was around the cost comparisons when it comes to pure taste versus other options available for entrepreneurs, including brown rice protein isolates, soy protein isolates, other generally available isolates and concentrates. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. We're going to be more expensive. Soy is relatively cheap. You can get that. You can probably buy it even in small quantities at less than $3 a kg. Pea is more expensive. It's about $6 a kg. You might be able to get it in quantity less than that. We're going to be more like, and actually rice is more expensive again. So, and there's just not a lot of good rice out there. Unfortunately, a lot of it's got heavy metals and other things. We're going to be more in quantities, more like, $10 to $11 a kg, depending on the quantity that you buy. So we're not for, as I mentioned earlier, for every application. We're going to have to go to better for you foods. We're going to have to go for high-end consumers. When you look at the cost per use, even in our burger, it's only, it's about 15% is texturized protein. So it's actually a pretty small percent of the total. And so when you look at the cost in our burger versus pea in a burger, you're probably looking at, 10 cents difference. But you should be, from a taste profile and better for you and lower other ingredients, you're going to be pretty similar. So, you can look at the price per kilogram and you can go, wow, we're more expensive. Or you can look at the price per application and say, it's a little bit more expensive, but I can get a premium when I sell this in the market.
Got it. That makes sense. And you talked, there are questions around, Asia-specific recipes and applications of pure taste and those, especially for plant-based meats. Largely, there's a lot of use of gravies and spices, especially in India and, other Southeast Asian countries. Do you have any case studies or any examples at the top of your mind, about the use of pure taste and those applications catering to the tastes of the audience?
Well, I would say that it flavors so well that if you have the right texture, so my boss the other day he's my partner, but he made a plant-based dish and it looked like I don't know what it was. It was a ravioli or something. You could see that, or it was a teriyaki chicken, or I don't know what it was, but it was plant-based, and you could see the chunks of patty or whatever they used to make that, and then it was seasoned with whatever you want to season it with, and he was bragging on how delicious it was. So when you have a neutral product like ours, you can pretty well season it any way you want. You can make lots of dishes, and Prakash has talked to me about different dishes that they've tried it with and seem to like. So I would say it would be applicable to just about any type of cuisine.
Yeah, I think that's overall a lesson for food formulators is if you have a base ingredient that's quite neutral and is adaptable or quite versatile, that's something that probably functions well across different demographies, different dishes, and a lot of different things that people should probably be aiming for that kind of thing. Pete, could you speak a little bit about the trade-off as well? It really is a trade-off among cost, functionality, and taste. You mentioned that MycoTechnology's products might be a little more premium, but could you speak about the trade-off in terms of functionality? Because we've seen some pretty sophisticated questions here in the Q&A about, let's say, foaming capacity, right? Or gelation, things like that. So could you speak about that a little bit?
Yeah, there's all sorts of functionality things you can look at. And certain plant-based products function differently and better, and some function worse. I don't think we're any worse than most, but there's dispersion and there's gelling and there's foaming and all sorts of stuff in that market. So I think we compare very favorably. I think the water holding, oil holding is a benefit. So I think that's a good thing. It makes for a really nice extruded product, which also is good. I don't have a lot of data in that area. I don't think we foam at all or very well. So if you wanted to make a smoothie and wanted a big head of foam on it, we're probably not going to be the best or optimum product for that. It might taste the best, but probably not. But where we compete and when I sell, I sell on really a couple things. One is taste, because if it tastes good, people will come back and buy it again. So if you can get them to try it and it tastes good, they'll buy it again. So that's number one, taste. Number two for me is, the protein content. Does it have good protein content? I'm a person who looks for protein. In my diet, I want more protein. I'm eating more plant-based protein as I've gotten older. Mostly my wife makes me. She's sitting now here. She finally woke up, so she's sitting here listening. But I do eat that way now, and that's good for our company. So I'm looking for those things primarily, and less about maybe other things. Also, I said it earlier. Where's your marketing story? Where are you going to play? And I'm fairly certain in your market you have plenty of plant-based options. I haven't been there. I was hoping to get there next month, but that's not going to happen right now. So, what if you come out with a new product today? What are you competing on? What's your story? And are you just a Me Too product? And if you're a Me Too product, then you're just competing on price. And if you're just competing on price, then you may or may not make it, honestly, right? Entrepreneurs got to find something unique. They can't just have a Me Too and think they're going to make $1 gazillion. It just doesn't happen that way.
Certainly, great points. Any other questions, Siddharth or Varun?
No, I think so. We're at 5:45 p.m. So perhaps we should call the session to an end now. And we will definitely send out this, we'll send out the presentation to everyone. And as Pete mentioned, they're looking for big opportunities, big partners, but you can certainly reach out to Prakash at Escoffier to look at partnering with MycoTech.
Great. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it. I hope you have a great weekend, and reach out to Prakash, and we're happy to work with you guys to help you and answer the rest of the questions that didn't get answered today.
Thank you so much, Pete. Thank you for making the time and for waking up at 4 a.m. to take this webinar. Really appreciate it. Take care, everyone.